I'm really curious to hear like what you think.
Yeah, it looks amazing, by the way. Like, oh man, I didn't realize you were using MRI.
And so Jeff is thinking, oh my God, how do I save myself? What do I say right now? I mean, science-based lifting is dead. Coach Greg, in today's video, Jeremy Ethier spent $40,000 to prove that Jeff Nippard was wrong. You gotta love it how white guys decide to spend their money. We got Jeff Nippard, you know, the dropout dentista. Well, he spent all this money on a lab, a DEXA scam, and so on in order to prove science. Jeremy Ethier says, I don't buy it, Jeff, and so I'm gonna spend $40,000 to prove you wrong. I'm not making this shit up. Let's get into the video.
Recently, the entire fitness community has become obsessed with the same thing.
I'm all on the stretch wave these days.
And for good reason, as we had dozens of studies supporting this idea.
And so the main problem is that all the research has holes. Even this research has holes. It all has holes. But you know what doesn't have a hole? There ain't no hole in training harder than last time. Oh, Coach Greg, you need to keep 3 reps in reserve. Why, Mr. Mike? Aren't you the guy with 200 mistakes in your PhD? Oh, but Jeff Nippard, he said so because et al. Said it in an 8-week study with soccer moms. Data glitcher won't take a picture. Oh, and this study proves it, and they used a DEXA scam, an in-body scam. There's always something wrong with the science, and so next time you see somebody quoting off some bullshit study, think of it as this. Does that pass the logic test? Does that actually make sense?
To find out, I assembled an elite research team, brought in custom machines, and spent an entire year running one of the most comprehensive studies ever done.
Wait till you see how Jeff Nippard reacts to when Jeremy Ethier calls him out saying he's wrong. Greg, when he hear Jeremy used MRI, approved. Greg Doucette be howling like a wolf right now. Greg got his gold standard MRI machine. And that has to be the next study, Jeremy. Prove all of Jeff Nippard's DEXA scam bullshit is also wrong. That is what you need to do next.
But most studies measure growth using ultrasound. It's fast, it's cheap, and I've used it myself in past videos. But it has limits. Not every muscle can be accurately measured with ultrasound.
And so you can see some of the problems is just in the measurement. How are they actually conducting the experiment? Are they using an ultrasound? And what if it's done with soccer moms, beginners with no experience versus intermediates and or advanced? What if they've reached a plateau? And what if they're on performance enhancing drugs? Everything can affect it. And even to say we put 2 groups of people and they train to failure. Really, what's failure? You really think that every single person can push themselves as hard as humanly possible? Last I checked, they can't determine for certain if one person is training harder than the other. And in this study, training one half of the body in one way and the other half in the other. So let's train the stretch on the left arm and the squeeze on the right. Well, what about cross-education? Perhaps doing the stretch on one side is influencing the right, and doing the squeeze on the right side is influencing the left. And so just because a study is done with what you think is accuracy doesn't mean it actually is.
We needed to get the gold standard, MRI. So MRI gives us a full 3D model of each muscle, and it's incredibly precise.
And so you see, he literally uses the word the gold standard. And why? Well, it's very accurate, within 1% margin of error. And so you can say with certainty the changes that have happened in that muscle. Has it gotten bigger? Has it gotten smaller? Is it have more body fat, less body fat? And so it's very accurate in comparison when you're using a DEXA scam. Say it with me, a scam. It's taking a guess. And so how can you say with certainty whether the product works or doesn't work if you're using a DEXA scam?
But it's also insanely expensive, costing roughly $1,000 an hour. For our study, we needed at least 20 hours. And well, you can do the math.
$20,000 for simply 20 hours, very expensive. And what did Jeff Nippard divide to invest in? Of course, a DEXA scam. An MRI would be too expensive. But yet, you're all going to flock to his videos and say, see, here's proof. This is what 15% body fat looks like. This is what 10% looks like. This is not the truth.
It's called a within subjects design, which splits each person in half. One side of their body did the stretch focus training, and the other side did the squeeze focus training.
But it's not accounting for cross-education. And so despite the fact that Jeremy has a master's in kinesiology and so on, there's always going to be flaws in a study. It's only as strong as its weakest link. And if you can't remove all of the variables, how do you know what's actually working?
400 possible workouts, 388 were attended. And as a result, most people's muscles grew by around 20% bigger.
If anything, is that not incredible? Literally, they joined this, and whether they were training the stretch or the squeeze, 20% in 10 weeks. And these people, as far as we know, they were not on performance-enhancing drugs. And so whether or not you care about the stretch, the squeeze, and so on, what you probably care about is, are you going to make some gains? All of these people, they trained hard, and all of them, they made some gains.
Which side grew more, stretch or squeeze?
There ain't going to be a difference. As long as you're training hard, stretch, squeeze, the muscle's growing. I mean, do you really think they're going to notice a statistically significant change in 10 weeks of training when there's different factors such as cross-education taking place? And basically, the body is just saying this: if you want me to grow, I'll grow. It's not going to grow more because of a stretch or more because of a squeeze. It's growing because you're training. And so long as you're using progressive overload, which is training harder than last time, you're going to grow.
So after $40,000 spent and a year of hard work, our results were every single muscle grew the exact same amount on both sides.
This doesn't prove that the stretch is better or worse than the squeeze. It doesn't prove anything. All it proves is that science is bullshit, and depending on the study, it's going to say one thing versus another. In this study, no change, no difference. In another study, the stretch is more important. And so depending on what you want to say in a video, you cherry pick the study that backs up what you're saying. And so if you want to say there's no difference, you quote this. If you want to say there is a difference, you quote something else.
Chest, same growth. Side delts, same growth. Rear delts, same growth.
Same in this case, it doesn't mean same. It means no statistical difference. If it's the same growth, they would both grow by 20%. If one group grows by 22 and the other group grows by 18, is that the same? Well, no. 18 and 22, they don't look like the same number. I mean, if you rate a girl and you say, hey, she's an 8 and someone else says she's a 9, is that the same rating? Well, statistically, it is the same. There's no statistical difference. And so do you see the red stretch versus the blue squeeze? How is that exactly the same? Look at this graph.
Look at this graph.
Side delts. Quickly look at those graphs. Does it look the same? The blue and the red, they aren't the same. They in fact look very different.
Every single muscle grew the exact same amount on both sides.
Exact same on both sides. Every single group. Well, but did they? Even if they did, what if one person completely only trained the stretch and the other one only trained the squeeze? Would it then still be the same?
As long as the exercise takes your muscle through a full range of motion and there's at least some tension in the stretch, it doesn't seem to matter if the hardest part is at the bottom or the top.
And notice, in this experiment, they went through the full range of motion. It was simply harder in one position versus the other. Was it hard in the stretch at the bottom or harder in the squeeze? And so what if you only did the stretch with no squeeze whatsoever? Would the results then vary? And so just because this study is done and just because it says there's no difference, it doesn't mean that it's not possible that there is no difference after all.
But I first want to cover some of the limitations of our study. For one, we used untrained subjects. Now, some argue that beginners grow from almost anything.
Exactly. These people, they were all untrained. When you're untrained, you essentially show up and you do anything and you're going to make some gains. You could train suboptimal. You could train not as hard as you should be. You could have horrible form and technique and you're still going to grow. But what if you took somebody that's been training for 10 plus years and they're almost at their natural genetic potential? What then? Add to that, what if they're using performance-enhancing drugs? Perhaps with performance-enhancing drugs, the results would change yet again.
I do think that for well-trained lifters like myself, doing something new can often spark growth.
And so is it the fact that he was using the stretch position or the fact that he had never actually done that exercise? Which do you think it might be?
Now, whether it was a new stretch challenge that I wasn't used to, or simply me just enjoying the exercise more and pushing harder, it worked.
Or it's a new exercise, there's some novelty to that, he wasn't bored, and so he finally started to train hard. We've seen Jeff Nippard as of late. His new training is to train hard, fewer sets, less volume. He loves it. And lo and behold, he's making gains. And so is it the fact that it's lower volume that's making the progress? Or is it the fact that he actually likes his training and he's training hard?
I'm really curious to hear like what you think.
Yeah, it looks amazing, by the way. Like, oh man, I didn't realize you were using MRI.
Notice Jeff automatically, I didn't realize you were using MRI. He knows MRI is gold standard, but yet Jeff himself, he has a DEXA scam, an in-body scam. He knows it's suboptimal, but yet he's going to quote it as if it's gold. And so in that video with the body fat percentages, people acting like it might be more accurate than my laser eyes, are you kidding me?
Do these findings change your thoughts on some of the exercises that you may have thought are like better for growth?
Kind of.
All of that science, again, is science revisited. Every year we look at the studies and we say, oh, I was wrong. The next year we look at the studies, oh, I was wrong again. And so every year people are saying this is the optimal way to train based on science, and every year that changes. In comparison, we got guys like Dorian Yates, Mike Mentzer, and so on saying train harder than last time. It's important to really push yourself in the gym. Stop training like a pansy and really work it. And you need to train past mild discomfort to make gains. We've seen David Lade training just going half-ass and Chris saying, what are you doing? Oh, I'm saving myself for later. Bro, this is not your virginity and you're not waiting for marriage.
Now, you know what? You don't get a little bit of extra range of motion by doing the bench press. Like,
Does Jeff not remind you of Mike Israel at this time?
What?
When I said the bench press, screw my pecs, and I had it as the number one exercise, oh, it's not number one because there's not enough stretch at the bottom. My pecs are huge when I bench. It works. I have the proof in my body as well as with my clients.
My takeaway based on this new study is that like there's just flexibility. It's like kind of gets to like a deeper point about what science-based training should be and how it should be communicated.
And so Jeff is thinking, oh my God, how do I save myself? What do I say right now? I mean, science-based lifting is dead. Yeah, this shows that there's flexibility, that you can like do anything that you want. So long as you train hard, the science-based lifting, it doesn't matter. I mean, what can he say to this? How can he respond?
As long as you're training hard and, doing enough sets, maybe it doesn't matter so much. So that's a cool finding.
And so basically Jeff is saying, yeah, so training intensity, it's the most important variable. It's not the volume, it's not the stretch, it's not the squeeze, it's just training hard. This video is the single greatest ad for Coach Greg and HTLT training. Perhaps better than any he himself has produced. Them's are some strong words. And so, guys, do you now understand why science-based lifting is dead? Literally, every study that comes out, it conflicts with the other. It reminds me of the old bodybuilding magazines I used to read when I was a teenager, 13, 14 years of age. And I'm reading one month, it's all about volume, less intensity. You need to build up the volume. The next month, it says the exact opposite. Lower the volume, do 1 or 2 sets really hard. And the next month, it's saying another. What are these magazines teaching me? Every month when I think I'm learning something, I'm unlearning it the next. This is science-based lifting. They make it look like this is the way it should be, and then the next month somebody proves it's wrong yet again. And every year or two, somebody writes a program based on science, and then 2 years later, it's science revisited, and they sell you a different program. In comparison, I've been selling you the same program from day one. Oh, but Coach Greg, he's a grifter. I keep telling you what I think based on what I know, and I'm 50. And remember, I didn't write a PhD thesis with 200 mistakes. I have practical experience. I've coached thousands of athletes, and I also have my IPB Pro card. I'm 50 and I'm still improving. Train hard, and once you do those things and you get to a plateau, you can add in Turk Builder Max. You can add this in. You don't need to buy the supplements. You buy what you want. I'm 50 and I want to be optimal. Optimal for me. I want to be my best. And so what do? I use my freaking supplements. Going to the gym is way more important than using any of these supplements. And so I'd rather you go and train and eat healthy than buy my supplements. But if you're already training hard and you're already eating healthy and you want more gains than last time, that's when you start using things like Turk Platinum, Turk Builder Max, GO2 Max, all the supplements that I'm selling. This includes the pre-workouts, the creatine, everything. The number one thing you can do is get your ass into the gym and stop being a lazy piece of shit that's taking life for granted. And so if you're interested, code Greg for 15% off.
This whole experience has definitely taught me to be more cautious about how I interpret and communicate new findings.
And so when people start speaking in absolutes, you have to be careful. When you ask Chris Bumstead, 6-time Mr. Olympia champion, anything about training, what's optimal? His answer is always,
it depends.
Everything depends. I can't say this is better, that's better.
That is exactly why we're running our first ever MRI study on back growth, comparing rows versus pull downs.
And so the funny thing is, even with that MRI study on back growth, the rows versus the pull downs, it's still not going to tell you how to train optimally. It's not going to infuse people on performance enhancing drugs. It's not going to include certain types of training. And so how do you know? In that specific case, for those specific people, it's likely going to say no statistically significant difference. And so what? That doesn't mean that one's not better than the other. And so just listen, people, when you're reading science, studies, conclusions, understand that the title and the studies and everything can be manipulated by the statistician and those doing the research. And so please be careful. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm, like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to watch one of those two bloops. For AlgoRx, code Greg, you can get 10% off the blood work, the Ozempic, the terzipatides, the Cialis, testosterone, and enclomiphene. The list goes on. And we're looking for more ambassadors and sponsored athletes. Click the link in the description. And until next time, I am out.